Wow, it's windy out there. Okay, it is 12:35. Going to get some food, get on the M25, and then I'm going to talk some football. I've watched Mick's press conference. I know what I'm on about now, and we're going to talk some Ipswich v Derby. Onward. Okay, I've been to the supermarket for the 500th time since, I don't know, December the 23rd. Got some food on the M25. So now time to think about this game. So it's Ipswich v Derby. Ipswich beat Derby in a score after 5 minutes, defend for the other 85 minutes type game. Only a couple of months ago, I guess it would have been at the end of October, they were supposed to play in September, and Derby won in the Carabao Cup, and then Spurs, they drew, and Spurs were in the Champions League or something. So anyway, they couldn't play the game, and it got postponed, and so the two games are actually quite close together. So the big issue Mick has got is with his team, because he literally has, I think, 6 or 8 or some amount of central midfielders out. So obviously Dazelle went on the first game of the season, Bishop is now out for the season, Skews is not coming back until the Fulham game, Hyam is still out, Adeyemi's still out. It's just crazy. So he's basically left with not very many central midfield options, 3 to be precise. Callum Connolly, who's pretty much converted now to a midfielder, but is a young guy and he's on loan. Kevin Brew, who he was going to get rid of at the start of the season, who's done a pretty good job actually when he's played, and Grant Ward, who is not a kind of conventional centre midfielder. He's either a further forward one or a wide right player. So those are his 3 options. So I think he's going to do one of 2 things. He's either going to stack up the midfield, or he's going to fill his team full of forwards. So if he fills his team full of forwards, it's quite likely, and he's done this a few times this season, it will be 4-2-3-1, as in, look, let's just get the strongest 11 player for player out I can. Okay, so he'll play standard back 5. It will be Bart, I think Spencer will come back at right back, Chambers and Webster will be the centre backs, Knudsen will be the left back. Then if it's only 2 centre midfielders, it's more than likely to be Connolly and Brew, which wasn't bad against Wolves. And then he'll do the 3 behind Garner will be McGoldrick, Waghorn and Selina, obviously Garner up front. Now Derby are 3rd and are on a really good run, and in the other game he played a 4-1-4-1, so Skews kind of sat on his own, so he might try that again, but he's obviously only got 3 midfielders to do it. So you get the back 5 I just suggested, Bart, Spence, Chambers, Webster, Knudsen. Then I guess, because he's less mobile than the other 2, it'd be Brew that would sit. Then a midfield 4, the 2 central would have to be Ward and Connolly, just because of the sheer lack of numbers. Selina would play left, and then it would be between 3 of Waghorn, left-footed forward, McGoldrick, a right-footed forward, and Sears. One of those 3 would play right midfield with Garner off at the front. Although in the other game, Garner wasn't around. He actually played Waghorn as the lone forward, which obviously worked very well because they won 1-0. Now, knowing Mick and his pragmatism, I suspect it's more likely that he'll run the team full of midfielders. So I need to make a choice. I think he'd go for Waghorn over McGoldrick or Sears. So I'm going to go for a 4-1-4-1 with Bruce Satt, Connolly and Ward as the centre midfielders running. Waghorn playing right midfield. It's happened several times this season. Selina left midfield and Garner up front. Derby are on really good form. We seem to have some kind of hex on them in the away games. Ipswich always seem to win away at Derby. I think it's like 4 on the trot, 1-0 wins at Derby now, which is just crazy considering Ipswich haven't been very good for the last 4 years. So Derby tend to sign expensive players who have played in the Premier League before. They have sort of Curtis Davis, Tom Huddleston, Scott Carson, people like that. Very experienced players. The criticism we've given on the podcast is they're often players on a downward trend rather than an upward trend, looking to go on to better things in their careers, maybe comfortable players earning good money, sort of sat there at Derby County picking up the old paycheck. They have two players that we really don't want to see. So Tom Lawrence, who was on loan at Ipswich last season, who's a great player, signed for Derby for 7 million, obviously out of Ipswich's kind of price range, although we got Garner and Waghorn, so that's all good. And David Nugent, the man with the hex over Ipswich, although let's not get too comfortable, he has now not scored. He didn't score in the first game, got taken off at half time. He didn't score for Middlesbrough. It was only an 8-minute cameo though the last time he played us, and then obviously Middlesbrough were up for a season, so it has actually been, I don't know, 18 months to, it'd be 2 years. It would have been December 2015 he last scored for Middlesbrough against us. They obviously have Vidra up front as well, who scored a whole load of goals. Don't know what to expect from them. They keep a whole load of clean sheets, so they're obviously pretty decent at the back. So maybe a 1-0 win Derby, a 1-0 win Ipswich, or God, another 0-0. Witnessed 1-0 against QPR in the last game. So that's about the size of it. That's what I think is going to happen with the teams, unless Mick goes and says, look, I'm just going to get my best players out I can, goes with a 4-2-3-1, sticks the 4 forwards on, in which case there will be goals, but probably in both nets, because Ipswich is going to have a very squishy looking midfield. In terms of my journey, my match experience has just gone 1 o'clock, probably about hour and 20 to go now. We're on the M25, so I don't know, might get a Derby County podcast on, have a little listen to some music, and next stop, the teams actually will be the next stop. They'll be out. I reckon I'll be going past Colchester Stadium when the teams come out, so onward. Okay, so the team is in. I'm a little bit further than I expected to be, just going through Dedham now. Pretty much as I discussed, so the main headline is that McGoldrick misses out. So the 11 are Bart in goal, and we pretty much know that this will be the back four. So Spence, Chambers, Webster, Knudsen. And then the front six, this is the thing, we don't quite know how they're going to line up, but the front six in no particular order are Connolly, Brew, Ward, Waghorn, Selina and Garner. So Mick could go about this 3 different ways. He could play 4-2-3-1, he could play 4-1-4-1, he could play 4-4-2. So if it was 4-2-3-1, it will be Brew and Connolly holding, Ward to the right up front, Waghorn behind Garner, Selina to the left. He could play the 4-1-4-1 that he played against Derby before, which I would suspect would be Brew sitting. It would be Waghorn on the right of midfield, then Connolly and Ward, Selina on the left of midfield with Garner up front. Now away at Wolves, it was more 4-4-2, which would be kind of more straightforward, but we haven't seen it for a long while. So that would be a midfield 4 of Selina on the left, Brew, Connolly, Ward on the right, Waghorn and Garner up front. A lot of people were kind of mincing and moaning about players, quote, out of position. So in terms of the out of position thing, if you look at the 4-4-2, nobody is really out of position, but it just depends how Derby are going to work. But what is clear is that with that 11, he's got 3 different ways he can kind of match them up. I'm waiting for the Derby team to come in, but not too disappointed with the Ipswich team, and always good to have a player like McGoldrick on the bench, especially if you're struggling in a game and you just need someone who can control the ball, get hold of the ball, make space, make a pass, make a dribble. He can always do that with his quality. So let's wait for the Derby team and then I'll give my comments on that. Onward. I have made it to the car park, about to walk to the ground, just in the Derby team. Lawrence plays Nugent on the bench, which limits his chances of scoring, but does leave us open to the horrible option of a Nugent substitute goal cameo. Don't do it. Right, onward into the ground. Half time and it's 1-0 to Derby, and they honestly could be 3 or 4-0 up, so it didn't start too badly. Derby scored from a corner after 12, which I'll take a part of it later on. They kind of got better and better during the half. The annoying thing is they didn't have to do that much really to be the better side. We're not playing well, but they're not letting us. They haven't conceded a goal in, well, since they played us last. So I am not very optimistic for the second half. It could well end 1-0 to Derby, or maybe 2 if we push a little bit. And there's still the matter of Nugent on the bench. Yeah, let's go back for the second half. Back to the car. I've just made my long form video, so I'm going to upload that, hit the road, have a listen to the phone in, think about the game a bit more, and we'll be back with some more comments onwards. Okay, we're mid-journey on the way home. I found my way to the M25. On my way back from Ipswich's 1-goal defeat to Derby County. So I've uploaded my full match review, which you can find elsewhere on the channel. If you enjoy this video, I'd urge you to give that a watch. I've listened to the phone-ins and, you know, seen a few little things come through on Twitter. It's hard to tell whether to be worried now if you're an Ipswich fan or not. I am one of the few that trust Mick. I think that the Wolves game and the Derby game were both difficult games. We lost both by 1, and we made a good fist at Wolves and a good fist in the end today, but some would argue, kind of rightly, that we'd already lost the game by the time we made a good fist, so maybe that doesn't stand up. Obviously against QPR that was a bit different. That was a 0-0 draw where you think we probably should have won that game given the sides and, you know, league positions and such. You'd think, oh, that's a 3 points there. So Derby were definitely better for at least an hour, and they put their 2 goals in, spent a load of money. I mean, I don't buy the argument, oh, they're just better than us, because if that's the case, there's no point in sport, is there? You know, whoever is statistically better will just win, and that obviously doesn't always happen, and that's the beauty of sport. So I don't necessarily buy that, but today you could see that all of their more expensive, quote, better players played as a team better than our less expensive stroke cheaper players. So it worked well for them. I think they're gonna be very solid between now and the end of the season, and they've probably got a good shout for the top 2 now. It'd be interesting to see what they do in the transfer window. Obviously, historically, past few seasons they've spent a lot of money, so it would, I don't know, seem a bit silly given you've spent all of that money so far to get into striking distance and then not add, I don't know, 1 more player or something. But that said, Derby fans will know that they've been there before. They've been in this position before, right up the top of the table, and not got over the finish line, and, you know, lost in the playoffs, or even worse, dropped out of the playoffs. So that's about the size of it for Derby. I'll watch with interest to see how they progress for the rest of the season. Obviously, like Tom Lawrence to do well, because he did very well by us last season. For Ipswich, it's Fulham away on Tuesday, and the last 3 times now we've played Fulham, they have absolutely pasted us. Twice at Portman Road they've played us off the pitch, and once towards the end of last season at Craven Cottage they really gave us a going over there as well. So a bit worried about that one. And then you have Leeds at home and Burton away after the FA Cup game with Sheffield United, where you think, okay, maybe we can get some more points. Those sides to me look a bit more fallible than Fulham away do. So there you go. Hopefully he'll pull the points out next month. Normally with Mick, when the games look really hard, is when he pulls the points out, and when you actually expect him to win, he kind of doesn't. So there's every chance that could happen. With the FA Cup game, I don't really know what to expect. Mick's kind of make me not really care about that. I assume he'll play a weakened side, and I don't know whether Sheffield United will do the same. If we play a weakened side and Sheffield United play a full-strength team, they will beat us. That's what will happen. But hopefully some fringe players will get a chance to have a go. Maybe Luke Hyam, Tommy Smith, some people we haven't seen very much of. So yeah. So I've done all of the matches over Christmas. I'm trying to figure out how many there's been now. Real run. Feels like I've been to football every second day. So yeah, they played Wolves on the 23rd, QPR on the 26th, today on the 30th, then one more on the 2nd, then on the 6th, and then it stops being quite so stupid with the Saturday, Tuesday business, as Mick likes to talk about. So I'm going to do the last leg of the journey, grab myself some dinner and try and enjoy what is left of my Saturday night. So onward. Home sweet home. I've just been to Sainsbury's, and my tactic is that I'm going to have a feast for tonight's dinner and tomorrow's breakfast, and then I'm going to go on a diet and lose some weight. Stop beeping at me, it's no use, just stop it, okay? And apparently maple syrup is both the hardest to find and the most expensive foodstuff known to man. I have maple syrup for my pancakes tomorrow morning, and then yes, I will diet. I promise the world I'll diet. Not that anyone cares really. I promise myself that I will diet and lose my love handles on the side here. But yes, so it's 7:46. That's not too bad for a football match run. I don't know what time I left, like 1 o'clock or something. So 6 hours 46. Obviously there are people that live 5 minutes from the stadium, walk down, and it only takes them a couple of hours, but no, that's not the case, hence these wonderful match experience videos. So I've been to see Ipswich lose to Derby. Derby have so many things over Ipswich. They have a bigger stadium, bigger crowds, more investment, bigger squad, better squad. So really they should win. So if you look at it across 2 games, Ipswich won at Derby, Derby won at Ipswich. Both teams took 3 points. If you're an Ipswich fan, you should be happy with that. You should. There'll be teams Ipswich can do the double over, and there'll be teams Ipswich will have the double done to them. They'll take 0 points. So to have 3 points from the 2 games against Derby is actually good when you look at it in the grand scheme. Today, Derby a lot better than Ipswich. Mistakes for the goals in the first half. In the first half. Poor from the corner. But Derby did have other chances. Vidra should have made it 2-0 straight after. And they got through several times with Vidra and Winnall, and down the sides with Russell and Lawrence, and even the fullbacks getting forward nicely. Actually, Forsyth. Did Forsyth even have to do anything today? He had a cigar on for most of the day, didn't he? Anyway, we look to January now, and hopefully Ipswich can accumulate some points at Fulham and what's the other away game? At Bolton. God, 4 points from those 2 would be nice. And then, wow, 4 points from a draw against Wolves and a win against Leeds at home. Some hard games in there. So hopefully that would be the dream scenario. 2 points per game across the whole month. What's more likely is slightly less. But let's hope that There's not important outgoings in the January transfer window, and if anything, Kiefer Moore comes back and boosts the squad up and we don't lose anybody. Maybe a lone midfielder would be nice, or even better, Nydam, Downs, Adiemi, Skews, all of them we expect back soon, so that would help out massively. The worst case scenario, the doomsday scenario, is out of the FA Cup. We sell an important player and don't get a replacement. We don't pick up that many points and we get to the end of the month in a sorry state. Hopefully that's not the case. Fingers crossed it won't be. Thank you everyone for watching my videos. This is my first kind of year as a vlogger, so I appreciate anybody who's watched, and if you are watching for the first time, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I very much enjoy the comments and the kind of back and forth on YouTube to those people who are nice to me. You can disagree, just don't be mean. But I will be going to Fulham on Tuesday, so in the meantime, Happy New Year everyone. Don't get drunk, and if you do, don't be sick anywhere. You shouldn't. I'm going to do an onward into the house and eat my dinner, and see you all soon. Goodbye.